The network is, yep.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the show today. I have several guests with me, a panel really. And so invite all your friends, invite your frenemies, invite your contacts, because this is the AMN show. And today we're talking about back to school. What does that look like? There are people in the US who have already gone back. We know people in other parts of the world, some of you are just getting ready to go back. But we want to talk about what should be happening in our homes, what should be happening in the schools, what should we, the students, be. Uh, please turn off your phones. What should the students be prepared for? How about teachers? Are there any things that our panelists want to really highlight today for all of you? Because they all have different interests. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the show. Miss Lola Williams, Manuel Williams, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm Lola Williams. I am a college lecturer actually in the UK here. I am quite experienced in early years all the way up to university students, but currently I'm a college student, college lecturer, I should say, who wants to be a college student but isn't a college student. So there you go.
All right, welcome to the show. Omolara Rotimi, please introduce yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Omola Rutimi, and I am a mental health therapist and a child adolescent counselor.
All right, where are you
I
from? Oh, okay.
love helping children and adults enjoy life. I'm from Nigeria and to be here.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Ooh, we have the UK in the house. We have is in Lagos. Are you in Lagos? Omalara, are you in Lagos? Oh, network issues. All right. Wisdom.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Merino, for having me. My name is Wisdom Cole. I proudly serve as the National Director of the NAACP Youth and College Division. Originally from San Bernardino, California, was born in Lagos, Nigeria, but now reside in Washington, D.C. I work with young people who are under the age of 25 and are members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, really working to address key issues that impact our lives, everything from gun violence to racism to student debt, really making sure that we have a pathway towards freedom.
Hmm,
Woo-hoo. Welcome,
nice.
Wisdom. I'm so proud to have you here. Thank you for coming here. All right. So the first question, and I think Malara is having network issues as we can see. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I want to ask you is, as we prepare, as parents prepare to send their children to school, as college students prepare to go to school in the U.S., most of them are already back, except for the UC schools are still at home. But what's on your mind? What would you tell them? Let's start with Lola.
Okay, I mean, in the UK here, we're about to start probably in another week or so. All the students will be back, both in secondary, primary, and university. Some university students will start at the end of September. But what I would like to say to the students, first of all, to the students, is that they have got to pace themselves. Just don't rush into things thinking, oh, yes, I'm going back to college. I've got to read. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. A lot of unrealistic expectations easily lead to stress if they don't pace themselves. So I want to encourage our students to just take it easy, take one day at a time, and really enjoy life as it is. Because actually, all of those things that are coming, they will come in parts, and then you will be able to organize yourself in parts. So don't rush into things. Just, take your time and enjoy the moment of starting school again.
Hmm. Enjoy the moment of starting school.
Enjoy
I
the
have talked
moment.
to people who are really anxious about going back to school, and it doesn't really matter. It's grad students. It could be just just the idea of going back.
Yes.
Sometimes get people anxious. And so what you're saying is kind of just relax. And we're going to talk about
Yeah.
some techniques that you can practice when if you're
Mm,
anxious about
mm.
that. Because Molara is here. Molara, go ahead. Let's talk to you. We're talking about hopefully your network stays through just it's just 50 minutes.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Uh, oh, the question I don't know if you heard it is I wanted all of you to start with what would you say to people who are already going back or who are already back and in school, and what level are you talking about? Are you talking about, for us it's K through 12, or like Lola, it's college and university?
Here in Nigeria, we will be going back to school in a week or two
Ah,
weeks, depending on the state and the school structure. I'd like to, and I really love early childhood and adolescence, so I'd like to focus my attention first on
fine.
that category. And I'd say that parents, in particular, should pay attention to the emotional states of their children as they go back to school. So, there could be anxiety, there could be fear of the unknown, there could be phobia of any form, there could be stress in the mind of the child, there could also be grief if your child is changing a school or you are living in an environment to another environment, the child may be grieving. And
Mhm.
a child may not be able to identify and name the emotions they are going through. However, it doesn't rule out the fact that they are feeling those emotions.
Mm.
So I'd say parents should pay attention to the kids, look at how they respond or how they react to you, how they relate, how what is changing in their lifestyle, their feeding, their socialization, their communication with you. These are pointers to something is wrong with my child. My child is thinking about something but may not be able to explain it. So I'd say that there are quite a number of things that these kids will be going through at this point. They may not be able to explain it because sometimes they sense and they feel mom and dad is going through quite a number of things already, right? And it's a good time to pay attention to them and let's ask questions and see where there is a need for a counselor or a therapist or mom and dad conversation with the child or adolescent before they go back to school. Yeah.
You meant, thank you so much. There's one thing I'm gonna kind of just take out from that is the grieving, the grief when
Mm.
people change schools, and it's not just adolescent. It happens
Oh,
to the bigger kids.
absolutely.
It happens to everybody. But a lot of parents don't identify it. To them,
Yeah,
they just say, no, they're going to a new school. They're going to a new school, so they're good. They really,
exactly.
a lot of the times they're not good because first of all, they're thinking about friendships.
Yes.
They're going to be new into the friendship groups.
Yes.
How is somebody going to like them? Not going to like them. They have this anxiety. You
Absolutely.
know,
Mm.
and I think that I'm glad that you highlighted that because it's very important that you talk to your children.
Yes.
Please talk to your children. And when I say children, I'm talking about all you all, like
Mm.
all the way below,
Mm.
30. But you're all children. If you're
Right.
in going back to school, talk to people. People do have this
Mm.
anxiety and people have this
Yeah.
panics around it. I have clients who do, and their parents sometimes don't. They're like, they're just going to put them in a new school, and in the UK they have boarding schools.
Mm.
and,
Yes, we
and
do.
yeah, and that can also come with its own trepidations because this kids, especially when you're moving from as a day student and then you're going into boarding school. Speak to that,
Yes.
Laura, if you can.
Yeah, I think one of the important things to note is that sometimes we assume that nothing is being done about the transition that is taking place when children are moving either from one class to another or from one school to another. They're going from primary school to secondary school, or they're going from secondary school to college or university. We assume that nothing is being done, but actually, there are some programs. Good schools have programs, transitional induction programs, where they gradually introduce the children to the new changes. There's a lot that is being invested at the moment in looking at how to support children who are transitioning. I don't know about Nigeria, but I do know that in a lot of the UK schools we have the settling in periods that we bring up, or the induction, so that we can take along the parents but also take along the child. So we do look at the emotional well-being of children, because we've noticed that if you don't, you're going to have some serious meltdowns very shortly after they've
Absolutely.
moved. So those
Absolutely.
meltdowns require you to be very sensitive, like Amolara said, very sensitive, very observant, to see how each child is coping with the change. And so that also speaks to us as educators to be more concerned about the external factors that could be affecting children, other than the fact that they're in class, but there are other external factors that they could really be going through that, you know, become barriers to their learning. So us teachers are being trained, and that we are taking on more and more responsibility when it comes to emotional the emotional well-being of children, of students, of people. You know, we've just got different programs that we're putting together to help children cope with that transition. So yes, the boarding school is there, but it's not hard and fast as it used to be. They're different things that they do to bring the child into that space, and
Yeah.
that involves, you know, maybe gradually, you know, letting go of parents, or maybe having several visits and tours and meeting people way before the school starts, so that when school starts, there is something to start from. So it works well, but it's just for us adults to actually recognize, also, plus parents to recognize that these transitional things are very important.
Yeah, I think that you guys in the UK, I think you guys do a great job with those things, trying to transition them more effectively. But when a child
Mm,
is anxious, they're anxious. And so if you find that your child is not, because I've seen students where they've gone through everything you've said, where they went to the school, they did the tours, they had the parent, they did all
and
the
they're
stuff,
still
but they were
anxious.
still anxious. And so
Yes,
the parents needs to recognize this, right?
yes,
And
I agree.
hopefully today, before the end of today, we can also give you a little bit of techniques to utilize with your
Yeah.
children if they are anxious, because yes, some are still anxious. But wisdom, even though wisdom is director of NAACP youth and college whatever, you also taught for about what, a year or two.
Yeah, it's taught for about 3 years in the Bay
Oh, three
Area.
years. Oh, you put some time
Mm.
in. So
I did.
tell us what's on your mind for is it college students you're talking to? What's on your mind for them today?
Yeah, I'm thinking about our college students, because our college students have been going through a lot lately, just
Oh,
over
but
the
wisdom,
past
hold
weekend.
on just a minute. Let's define college for the audience, because in the UK
Right.
it's different. So let's decide what we mean by college here.
So for college, I mean 18 plus, 18 to
Yeah.
21, 18 to
Hmm.
25, folks who have
Hmm.
just graduated from high school. This
Mm.
past weekend, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, which was a march for jobs and justice. On the same exact day in Jacksonville, Florida, three Black people were gunned down by a white
Mm.
supremacist. And
Hmm.
before he went over there to the general store, he went to the local HBCU, Edward Waters College or University, and there was anticipation that he may do something at that school. Following up, just yesterday at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, there was an armed shooter. And so it seems that as we have, quote unquote, exited this pandemic, we are going back to an increased amount of school shootings of presence
Right.
on those campuses, and thinking about the
Mm.
mental and emotional trauma that it has on our
Mm.
students, right? Young
Mhm.
people are being harmed on their campuses. Young people are not safe in our churches. They're not safe in our schools. They're not safe at the movie theaters. They're not safe at the Dollar General store. There are a lot of factors impacting their ability to be safe in their own community. And so I'm really thinking about the mental, emotional trauma and the factors that impact that. Apologies for the sound behind me. But you see that young people are being consistently inundated with
Right.
these messages, And particularly when it comes towards our Black students, our Black young people, when you are consistently seeing imagery and messages of Black death, or that you are not wanted, of white supremacy, the type of hold that has on your mental and emotional psyche in terms of your ability to complete the university, or your ability to achieve, or your ability to perform at those levels are impacted.
Absolutely. Wow. You know, when we talk about school shootings, for example, in the United States, we used to have, I remember back in the day, all we had earthquake drills. 30 years ago, we had like earthquake drills, you know. Now we have active shooter drills.
Yeah.
Right. So you have, and I talk about this with my students in my trauma class. When you have 5, 6, 7-year-olds who participate in active shooter drills, that itself is traumatizing.
Yes.
Let's talk about when it actually happens. So in the US, we actually have a collective trauma when it comes to this whole shooting stuff, wisdom, right? Not to, I'm going to come back to the Black community in a minute, but look at it globally, and you see that the entire country, because is afraid of this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and then we reinforce this through all of this active shooter stuff that we do. Not that it's not necessary, but understand that that is fear for those kids. You know, why should a 5, 6, 7-year-old be participating in active shooter drills?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
There's been, just this year, there have been an average of 2 mass shootings per day.
Wow.
Just this year in the United States, right?
And
you're seeing the accessibility that people have to guns, that have to assault weapons, to inflict violence on other people, because hate speech is being promoted across this nation, right? We have a governor in Florida who is banning African American studies, who is trying to take away our history, trying to take away our education, trying to limit our access to understanding of self. And we know that through understanding of self, it promotes better performance in school. It promotes higher achieving. It promotes young people being able to enter into the careers that they want to be in the future. And so when you're being faced with all of these factors, especially as you are going back to school, hoping to connect with new people, you know, I think about this generation of young people a lot, because their experience, even in transitioning into college or being in college, is vastly different than all of ours, right? The idea that you are connecting with people in this digital environment, that you are not having some of the same social skills that you used to have in terms of building relationships, right? Like I'm seeing a lack of communication skills. I'm seeing a lack of understanding of how to actually build networks, of how to actually build long-lasting relationships, because they just don't know how. They haven't been exposed to that, right? I can the second that I don't want to engage, I can turn my camera off and not be there, right? I can take away my presence away.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've highlighted the problem. Here is the challenge we have that I can see, and we should be concerned about it. What should college students do about this? What do you want them to do? How should they react?
So, you know, I think back to some of the promises that President Biden has made to young people, right? President Biden's number one agenda and the number one amount of money that he's pouring into for young people in America is mental health, emotional support, and trauma, right? He said that multiple times in his State of the Union. There has been countless dollars that have been poured into different organizations. But what I'm seeing is that folks are not receiving these resources on the ground. And so what is essential for these young people to do, and which is difficult too, right? In the midst of your own trauma, you also have to advocate for the resources that you need, right? How are you ensuring that there are mental health professionals on your campuses? How are you actually taking the time to go and see them? I myself was a student leader at the University of California, Santa Cruz, telling young people to go and talk to a therapist and go talk to a psychiatrist and go talk to those things. But I myself never did it. I just started going back to therapy for my own, you know, mental health, because I'm recognizing how needed it is, right? And so part of it is making sure that those resources are reaching the right people, right? There are people who know how to apply for it, how to get those grants, how to get those supports necessary. And there's a lot of schools and places that don't know how to do that. And so how are we ensuring that we are teaching those people how to achieve those resources, but also disperse it appropriately to the community?
Hmm.
One of very good was the one of my hats that I wear is mental health commissioner. And we had a meeting at some point, and we were talking about why students, high school students and college students are not at the table. Because these resources are there. As in the United States, they're there, and especially if you live in California, because our governor also poured in money to mental health, and so these schools have the resources now. They do, but the students are not utilizing. They're not consuming this. So we had this whole conversation about it, blah blah blah, and then I got home and I remember asking my children. We were then in high school, the two of them. I was like, "Look, what's going on with y'all? This Gen Z, like what's going on with you guys? You're not utilizing the resources, and we know that you guys are need them. Why aren't you guys talking about your mental health? Why aren't you?" And she told me something. She said, "Mom, we're talking about mental health. We're just not talking to y'all. We're
Yeah.
not talking. We're not talking because on our end, we also need to change how we're
Yes.
presenting this to them. It's not,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be, oh, go into the room and get the. They're not there. Like Wisdom said, they're all online. They're not coming to your offices. You know, you have to get to a point where on our end, we also have to change the way we are presenting this thing to the younger generation. So because we have to meet them where they're at.
Yes.
Okay, you're saying you're nodding your head, Lola. Go ahead, jump in.
Yes. I mean, like here in the UK, I can really speak a lot more about here than Nigeria or the UK, the US. But here in the UK, what we did notice is that students are not accessing the mental health programs that we've all put together for them because they were not part of that
They were
plan.
not the
They were
team.
not part of it. So, one of the things that I think, one of the strategies that we have now is about training the frontline staff to connect because they're the ones that are in touch with the students on a day to day basis, to connect with them from the mental health, you know, perspective, to connect with them because the students talk to them. They talk to the frontline staff, they talk to the teachers. But the teachers used to say, "We're not counselors. Let me refer you to a counselor." And that's where we lose the students. So, one of the strategies is to equip the frontline staff with the skills that they need to be able to connect with the students. That means the chef, that means the cleaner, that means the staff that is teaching on a day-to-day basis. So we don't have to send these students into areas that they don't want to go. They don't see counselors per se here as helpful. In America, maybe you call them therapist, and that that might have a different ball game. But here we've had to put in a lot of effort with frontline staff to support the students on the ground, in the classroom, in the sports hall, in the salon, in everywhere that the students are. You have people who are now equipped to be able to recognize and deal with things in a much better way. So we're closing the gap gradually with even a lot of training on mental health and trauma awareness, and everything is all blown out now, especially after COVID, because it's
Absolutely.
taken us like
Yes.
about 3 to 4 years. Even 4 years after COVID, 3 years after COVID, we're still struggling with the mental health of a lot of students who have still not caught up with their academic abilities from COVID. Talk less of relationships. And something that Wisdom said earlier on that really um, resonated with me. He said, I think you said something like that they don't know how to communicate anymore.
Yeah.
People
Build
don't know
really
how to
build
communicate.
network. Yeah.
Uh,
They don't know how to they don't know how to network, they don't know how to talk. It's all emojis and texting, and they can't, and that has affected their relationships, and that has also affected their mental well-being. They
yeah.
cannot communicate their needs. They cannot communicate. Young children cannot communicate their needs, so that's where we've had to go into, art therapy, and you know um things like play therapy, in
Yeah.
order to help these children communicate. And we're talking about in the daycares, in the nurseries, where before we used to think of play therapy and art therapy as something that a child who's been traumatized, maybe through devastating events in their life, have been sent to the hospital, and that's where they have play therapy. Play therapy now is a big thing in the nurseries on a day-to-day basis, and we're
Yeah.
using that to reach children. So it's all about training and involving the frontline staff to support the children in getting through this time.
Thank you so much. And I know Malara is wanting to get in on this. So
I'm
let me just
itching.
say this. I know. I'm going to just say this, and then I'll give you the floor here. The students also need to be at the table when we're making the decisions. As
Right.
all of you stakeholders listening, the students need to be at the table.
Yeah,
You can't be promoting and coming up with programs for them when they're not even there to tell you what they need. You need to hear from them, bring them, let them know, let them tell us. So you can't be talking about high school wellness program and there are no students in the committee. You need to have those students there. All right, Malara, jump in.
Yes, I mean I agree with you, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. We need to really add them into this table, into our decisions, because we don't see things the way they see things. And until we get that, we would not be bridging that gap. It's such a huge gap. And if we don't bridge it on time, we'll be having high rate of depression, high rate of suicidal thoughts, and suicide itself, right? So, like Lola mentioned, we need to get to a place where we train the frontline staff. I mean, you see in therapy sessions where adolescents will tell you, you can't get me, you don't get me. I'm messed up, but you can't get me here in Nigeria. And I see reasons to that because we really don't get them. We want to give them what they need, but we don't know how to give them what they need. Perhaps we are missing the right channel to give them what they need. So we need to begin to see how to meet the emotional, psychological, and mental needs of the future leaders in a way through their lenses, how they see things. We need to begin to think of how we can begin to create apps that can include how they assimilate knowledge, understanding, and relief, and begin to
yeah,
see how we can bring mental health into this. Also, we need to
mm,
get to a place, and this is one of the things that is happening now in Nigeria, where we don't just train frontline staff, but we train other agents of socializations, right? Other places where adolescents, youths get together and speak freely. So we have places here like social gatherings, we have places like religious gatherings, and what we do is we talk to those in charge of those gatherings, and who are your frontline staff? Who are those that youths and adolescents really talk to, relate with? And then how can we train them such that they can give a first aid and build their level of trust and confidence in speaking to a counselor or a therapist? And they can help them to a level and move them up to other levels. So, yes, really important. that we do that. We need to begin to see things the way they see things. What they call love is not what we call love. I mean, you hear that in sessions, and you're going to be like, really? This is not love. But I tell you, this is how I want you to listen to me. This is how I want you to love me. This is how I want you to care for me. This is how I want you to help me. I mean, so it's such a huge thing that we are trying to build up here in Nigeria. It's going to take quite a number of time, but I trust and believe that we'll get it. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amala. Somebody said, I see this, bringing children among the stakeholders when making decisions cannot be overemphasized.
Yes.
Okay, so wisdom. Here it is. There are college students who, let me just, before I say what I'm about to say, the younger generation are much more sophisticated when it comes to
Emotion.
accessing and processing their own emotions. They know the language, they know the vocabulary, they understand their own emotions and their own psychological well-being. They will tell you what is going on. They
Yeah.
know it. All right. So these students, they know it. Now, what are they doing with that knowledge in terms of how are they helping themselves is where I think we need to really talk a little bit more, because like you've just laid down, you've talked about college debt, you've talked about shootings and stuff. So someone going off to college, some going off to college now, in a few weeks, right? They're going off to college. How should they deal with their own mental wellness? Because that's important. You might know the vocabulary, you might understand all the lingo and stuff, but what are you going to do with it? That's what I would like for you to address.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, as an activist, as an organizer, as someone who works with a lot of high functioning young individuals who are fired up and ready to change the world. Burnout is real. And I stress this all the time, even for myself. You can't pour into others unless you're pouring into yourself. And how important inspiration and hope is in this world and into the work that we do. When I think about the young people and our future, right? Our young people are advocates for environmental climate justice because they know that if we don't have a world to live in the future, then we have nothing. And so it's very important that we continue to invest in resources that allow young people to really decompress, to open up, to share those things, but also to apply it, right? You said something like they know all the words and the vocabulary, but there's difference between knowing it and actually applying it and actually doing something to address your own mental state. I can know that I am depressed. I can know that I am experiencing trauma, but the world that we live in tells us that you have to continue going. You have to continue to achieve. You have to continue to move forward. And so sometimes you don't address those things the way that you know you need to. And so how are we also creating systems to support particularly our youth leaders in making sure that they are maintaining safe mental and emotional supports? A lot of what I did as a teacher in San Francisco was also thinking through trauma-informed teaching, where when even harm happens in the classroom, how are we taking it from a perspective of our collective responsibility? How are we taking time to actually sit down and discuss what happened, and not how it only impacted you, but also how it impacted the community and the space, right? If I am choosing to act up because something happened at home and I'm choosing to disrupt this classroom, this is not just only impacting my own learning, but impacting the learning of others. And when I think about the real theory of change in terms of what I believe in when it comes to learning, is that it's about all of our smartness, it's about all of us achieving, it's about all of us bringing our brilliance together. And if somebody is down, that impacts all of us. And so how do we make sure that we are coming to a perspective of that you're not alone, right? You are not a person feeling this by yourself. We say this within the student debt campaign all the time. You are not alone, right? You are not your loan that you took out, and you're not alone in the feelings that happen when that you have that burden of student debt, when you have the burden of college debt, when you have the burden of all the pressure that coming through college. I think one of my most liberating moments when I was in college was figuring out that I wasn't the only person experiencing these things, right? That there were other people in the state of California, that there were other people across this nation who also were feeling a lot of the similar things that I was feeling in this moment in time. And so recognizing that this wasn't only happening to me, but that there are other people who also found ways through it to cope with it, and to help themselves. And so what I try to do with my young people is think about different strategies, right? I'm a big advocate of mindfulness. I have my own mindfulness practice. I pray. I make sure that I am doing what's necessary to protect my mind. And Professor Marino, like, you know my story, you know what I've been through. And for me, like, as I've gotten older, like, protecting my mental well-being has increasingly become one of the most important things. I know how sensitive my mind is. I know how I react to things. I know how I overthink. And so I try to create optimal situations where I can perform to the best of my ability, but also protect my mind. I have to run in the morning. I have to pray. I have to breathe. I have to do different mindfulness practices to ensure that I can do what I need to do. If I want to change the world, if I want to support all the young people that I work with in my organization, I have to be good to myself. Like, there was periods of time during the pandemic, I was working all night, staying up all night, trying to get this, trying to finish the budget, trying to finish these project proposals and do all this stuff. And I felt terrible. I felt so bad. I felt like I was not achieving anything and that I was working myself to the bone. And when I realized that I wasn't being inspired, that I was not in places and spaces that benefited my own mental well-being, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how late I stayed up, no matter how many all-nighters I pushed, I was not really accomplishing anything. And so really making sure that you are setting yourself up success. When you pour into yourself, when you take care of yourself, when you find a community that truly loves you and cares for you and values you, and you go where places that you're celebrated, you will begin to find that success that you are looking for, right? Oftentimes we think that we have to bury ourselves in trauma to find success, and that's a really dangerous mentality to have. And so I really want to make sure that I'm pushing young people and encouraging young people to find the places where they're celebrated, to find the places where they're inspired, and to continue to work to support themselves and find the resources to do that.
Woo-woo. Wisdom, I can listen to you. Look. One of the things I've heard here is resources. Find the resources, and a lot of things that what's happening in Cali now, and I'm hoping you guys are doing across the nations and maybe other countries can do, is we're actually creating wellness centers in on school campuses, not therapist's office, now the counselor's office, well, like wellness centers for the students, and it's not, it's what they want to do. There could be basketball there. There could be a place for mindfulness. There's a place for, just for you to sit down and breathe, whatever it is, depending on the school district, they're forming this this wellness centers, and they are student initiated. So this is so powerful. And so this has been really good. And I think that the resources is making sure that that there are resources out there for you to utilize. I think that's really good. And like Wisdom said, practice mindfulness. Mindfulness means that you just bring yourself to this moment, bring yourself to that. Your mind is not it's not full. There's mindfulness and mindful. You don't want your mind to be full. You want to be mindful of the present. That means I'm focused on this present moment, because trauma will keep you in the past and it will keep you in the future, but you want to be right here. So thank you for that. I'm glad you brought that up. Miss Lola, I can see that you're itching to get on this, so go ahead.
Well, you're just throwing me in there, but I will take it because earlier on when Malara was speaking, you said something about listening, and I think one of the things that I've picked up this year is being able to hear my students when they talk, because it's very easy for you to just be overwhelmed in yourself and not being present with them when they're talking or they're saying things or they're having a meltdown. You can have a meltdown with them or react to them. But one of the things that I found was I wasn't listening. And if I was listening, I would react in the most sensitive way that met their needs. And so what I started to do was I went on some courses to learn how to listen properly when we're talking about counseling skills with children, with
Mm.
adolescents, and I learnt that actually when they feel that they are listened to or that they're being heard, that's half of the problem solved, because they know that you value them, you value what they're saying. And even if you just help them come to the solutions from themselves, you've helped them move from the bottom to at least halfway up the top. So I think one of the things that we need to encourage parents to do, because I'll say this very quickly. um Gone are the days when we used to say a child should be seen but not heard.
Oh my gosh.
Those days are gone. And
Gone.
as a Nigerian parent, if you have not changed that mindset, or African parents or Jamaican parents, or I don't care, whatever parents, if you haven't changed that mindset that our child should be seen but not heard, you're in trouble, because there's going to be some
Yeah.
rebellion down the line. So one of the things that we can do when a child is feeling anxious, there's all kind of behaviors that can come forth. Even us adults, when I'm feeling anxious, I can behave in a very erratic way, only to come down to it to say, oh, hang on a minute. The reason why I'm acting this way is because I'm anxious. I'm fearful of something. I'm not together with myself about something. So the same way we look at ourselves, we need to look at children, we need to look at adults, we need to look at adolescents and say, look, they're anxious. What is it that they're really saying to us? So being sensitive or going on some trip, the frontline staff just need to learn how to listen and then use that information to support the child. But if they're not listening, they can't help the child. So listening is a key skill that we need to promote with the parents and with the frontline staff.
And listening, trying to listen when you have cognitive distortions, that trying to listen when your mind is full can be difficult. So
Mm.
practice some of these skills. We're going to teach you just a few things. How do you breathe? There's a lot of breath work that exercises that you can do out there. My favorite is you breathe in, hold, and then exhale slowly. The power is in exhaling, is in when you exhale. The power is in exhaling slowly, right? So you go like you're blowing into a balloon, right? You want to do that and practice that. That will help your anxiety go down. It helps you just center yourself. There are all kinds of one. You can just Google breath work and it will come up with different things for different types of breath work for you. But practice, because when we're anxious or we're too busy, we forget to breathe properly.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. True.
Go ahead, Amala. I see you want to get in. Go, go, go. No,
Yes. So
definitely.
talking about breathing, there's also a kind of breathing that we practice in sessions with children, and that's bubble breathing or bubble
Mhm.
breath, right? So it's just the way you did yours for an adult. We do that with children, such that they take in a lot of breath and then they blow into the bubble. But as we do that, and I usually encourage parents to also do this at home, especially when you notice that your child is always anxious, right? So as you do that, you let them know that. So when you are feeling like you can't do it, just take that breath and then you breathe out. I mean, if we can really get to a point, like you said, where we have our mind focused and our energy focused on the moment, it's going to really go a long way. And so that breathing is very important. So I thought to put in the bubble breathing for parents here that have children or adolescents. Just
Yeah.
once they take in a lot of breath and then they blow into the bubble, just talk to them. And it's fun. It's
Yes.
fun.
That's
And
a lot of
so,
fun.
yes, so if you're anxious, just do that. Anxiety usually comes when we feel we cannot control what we think we should be able to control.
Mm,
And that's where it starts from. And the truth is, we can't control everything, But if we are not mindful of the moment, we won't see really that we can't control everything. We will keep thinking that we can control everything. And so we keep increasing the level of anxiety and increasing level of anxiety and all. And that's why mindfulness, like you said, can never be overemphasized. Right. And the breathing. Lola mentioned listening, active listening as a skill. I'd like to just put this here also that another skill that is really good that parents should also pick up is empathy.
Mhm.
Empathy. Empathy is so key. Empathy is really not sympathy, right? It's putting yourself in the shoes of your child and saying, what if I was this child? How will I react? How would I feel? What would I want to hear at this time? How would I want to be talked to? How would I want you to receive me? How would I want you to give me love? And so, if we can put ourselves in the place of empathy, it goes a long way in helping the mental health and mental state of the child. It can never be overemphasized. It takes us away from a place of trying to look for the fault of a child or an adolescent, but seen from the point of view that we are not perfect, and you can make your mistakes in your own stage and your own level the same way I make my mistakes in my own stage and my own level. Of course, I could be an adult. I am an adult, so I have grown emotionally. I can understand my emotions so much. I am self-aware to a level that I can handle it, but we are not there. And so empathy helps us to be able to see how they see things and feel how they feel things. And so we come to help them, not from a place of judging them, but from a place of accepting them with love and looking how we can both pull through these things together. So I thought to share that.
Excellent. Well done. Well done. Empathy, walking in their shoes, being able to be able to relate to them. I absolutely, that's really important because sometimes as parents, all of you listening to us today, parents and teachers and students and leaders, because we have leaders too, youth leaders who do this because you're so busy and everybody, you have the next class and the next work and this, those children do not receive your empathy because they just become something to do. Have they had their lunch? Have they had their breakfast? Have they at school? It's just check. Now I have to go on to the next thing. But this world is so chaotic that we live in. This world that we live in and their world is pretty horrible right now because of all the stuff that they have to deal with. But you, especially the parents, you have the key to detonating this bomb. So don't do that. What you want to do is shield them from the bomb because you can say a word that will just, everything will just
Oh,
explode because you are that important. This whole idea of epigenetics, you need to take care of yourself as adults. As the parents, you need to heal yourself because if you don't heal yourself, you're going to transfer your traumas to your children.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Do you understand? And sometimes you now overparent. Overparent is I am struggling with myself, so I'm going to shield you so that you don't get all the stuff that I got. And so you don't allow the child to actually grow and blossom in their own way. And we all have done that. But at some point, we have to say, hey, you know what? I need to heal so that they can heal. And Maya Angelou, before she died, she had a conversation with Oprah one time, and she was talking about her daughter. She said a daughter would, she didn't want her daughter to experience all the stuff she experienced. So she was always judging. Oh, you're not this. Oh, you're not that. You're not that. That. And every time she always has something to say to that girl. And the daughter started shying away from her, pulling back from her and stuff. And she thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is not the result that I want. So she decided, I made a decision that every time she walked into the room, I won't look for something to penalize or something to judge and criticize, but I will let her see my face of love. And things began to change. The power the parent holds
Yeah.
is pivotal. And so, parents, hey, there are no perfect parents out there, but
Yeah.
those children are in your care. No one else is. So, no matter how busy you are, no matter how aggravated you are, no matter how tormented you are, you need to heal yourself. You cannot give what you don't have. The same thing with teachers. I did a whole training for teachers in Massachusetts, all of them. Teacher wellness. You cannot give your students what you don't have. And there's studies and studies out there that says that the teacher's well-being, I mean the student's well-being, is correlated to the teacher's well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So teachers, you have to take care of yourself. You have to heal yourself. That's the bit I want to say before I give you all the last words to say. So wisdom, go ahead. Last closing words.
Yeah, for all of my young people out there, I really want you to think about this as a season or opportunity to pour and to invest in yourself. There's so many things that we want to do in this world, particularly when you're young and you have energy, and you're fired up for justice. You're fired up for community. You're passionate about your work. But we have to do this together, and we need one another. And it's not bad to ask for help. I'm turning 30 next month, and I'm still learning how to ask for help and ask for support and reach out to people, and also teach people how I need help. Right? Oftentimes, we recognize that even with our parents, with our loved ones, with different people who we interact with on a regular basis, we have also taught them how to treat us. And so it's never bad to reteach people how you need to be treated, how you need to be loved, how you need to be supported. And that is an active process that you do your entire life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Turning 30, huh?
Getting up there.
Okay. All right. Lola.
Well, there's so much to say. I think when I think about just the last word, I would say just learn to be non-judgmental. And I'm talking about the parents, I'm talking about the administrators and the teachers. Learn to not be judgmental. I mean, just learn to listen and give them a chance. There are external issues that students are facing other than, coming in late or, what have you. Some of them have no food at home. Some of them have no time to even study at home. They have no space. Some of them are homeless. You don't know, but you'll go in there and judge them and cause more anxiety. So learn to just, I mean, like Omolara said, be a bit more empathetic, learn not to be judgmental, learn to listen. And the final thing is balance. They're studying, but they need play, they need leisure, they need freedom, they need exercise, they need diet, they need all bring some balance into your teaching so that your children will have a holistic benefit from everybody.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amalar.
Yeah, so I'd say that this is for parents and caregivers and teachers. Please pay attention to your child's emotion. Very key. I'm a fan of the affective domain in education because it's the part of the domain in education that talks about the behavior and the emotions of the child. A lot of issues that we deal with in sessions in adulthood, in therapy sessions, counseling sessions, tracing back, it's always has a root in childhood trauma or childhood experiences and all. And trying to help clients through therapy realize that there's always something about the behavior or the emotion that was either traumatized or mad or something happened to it. So I'd say please pay attention to the emotion of your child. The verbal cues, the non-verbal cues, they are telling us something every time. Adolescents do not really understand how to manage their emotions. They are still learning how to do that. Child does not even understand fully how to name and identify their emotions, and they need help. Whatever help we give at this stage can help them become a better person as an adult, or become an adult with a lot of maladaptive behaviors. So thank you.
So how does, I mean, you can't end it like that. So how does a parent then know what are some of those behaviors a parent should look for? Like
Okay,
and say, okay, no, this is not normal. So I'll just give you one. One is if a child consistently doesn't want to go to school.
great.
Okay, so give us some more so that they can know what to look out for.
All right. So if a child just suddenly becomes withdrawn, doesn't want to talk anymore, or doesn't want to express his or emotions how he or she does it, if a child sees exciting things and activities less exciting, it's another pointer to it. If a child is not interested in socialization anymore, something
Mm,
is wrong somewhere. If a
mhm,
child is not eating healthily, does not want to eat like the child does not sleep regularly like the child does, there's something wrong. If a child is always glued to the phone, to the device, to his or herself, something is wrong. So there are quite a number of things that you could look out for, but those are the common signs, and a child will pop into one or two, so you
mm,
know. Another is if a child suddenly becomes aggressive or overly defensive, something is wrong somewhere. So
yeah.
if you look at these things, we should be able to see and tell that something is wrong with my child's emotion or mind or thinking somewhere.
Mm. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those. Look, and this is not just for children. It's not just for children. It goes in, don't
Mm.
forget those high school students. Those students, they're the ones when parents stop going to, parent teacher stuff and they think they're fine and they might shut their room and they don't want you to disturb them. Disturb them.
Yes,
Go into their rooms, talk to them, see what they're all about and all of this. And let's just say this right here, and people have probably heard me say this before, this whole notion about you can't be your parent, your children's friend,
Friend.
that's rubbish. Okay, if you're not their friend, well, who do you want to be?
who
Of course
will
you want
be?
their parent, but you also want to be their friend. That means that you're
Absolutely.
friendly towards them. You want to know what they're all about.
Mm.
Look, I remember when my children were in high school and one of them was just going through stuff, right? But I wasn't aware of it until I just started thinking, wait, there's something off with this girl. Let me go and see. So I'll just go to her room. I would just hang out, do nothing, and we'll just do the until she started talking to me. I was like, oh my goodness. So yes, you have to go to them. You have to have fun with them. Learn
Yeah.
their dance. What is their new dance? Make a fool of yourself. Play cards with them. Look, all, and we have a very spiritual audience and religious spiritual audience. It's good to pray, it's good to fast, all of those things are good, but we need there's also the the relational part of parenting.
Yes.
Right? So you can't just say, I've been praying for them, I pray for them. Get off from your knees once in a time while and go and play cards with them or go and play scrap. I don't know what else, shoot ball, whatever you want to do, because that's when they will open up to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When they're going to open up to you. The same thing with school counselors. All you school counselors who sit who sit behind your desk and you're trying to reach out to students, not going to work. Get from out from behind that desk. All right. Give them water, give them juice, take them for a walk in the around the school, and they'll start to open up to you. Do you understand? We need to get rid of all of the barriers that actually impedes us from connecting to these children. Do you know this gen whatever? These Xers are actually known as the parentless generation. Not because they don't have parents, but because they're parenting themselves.
That's right.
Social media, that's how they're parenting themselves. So unless
Absolutely.
you as a parent
Get in
actively
there.
decide, I'm going to be a part of this, of my children's life, you find yourself out of the door of their lives, right? So let's end on that. Thank you so much for you guys. Except anybody has anything, the last minute stuff you just want to throw in before I wrap it up? Anybody? itching to say anything?
Keep on praying. Keep on
Okay.
praying for your children.
Pray for your children. Pray for your children.
Keep on
But
praying.
don't let that be the only thing you do.
No, it's not the only thing, but just keep on doing it.
Yes. All right. So pray. What else? Anyone else? Anything? We're good. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. People have been enjoying it. And our hour is over. Sorry, 2 minutes over. And I will see you next time. Miss Lola, Mr. Wisdom Cole, and Miss Omalara, thank you so much for sharing space with me.
You're
I
welcome.
so appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
And I'll see you next time. So stay right there until we turn off the go off the air. Bims, we need to go off the air.